think we're ready to do this.
Let's get after it, man.
I think we're ready to get on the pitch one more time.
Let's go on to the pit. Dude, I've learned so much about soccer from this podcast. I like this guy, too.
You got a bunch of soccer terms in your back pocket ready to go.
Next time I go overseas, just hand them out like candy.
And here we are at the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Quinn, with my co-host, Dominic DiTolla. And you know what? We were just talking about it, and now I'm going to say it. We're back on the soccer field. And we're talking Zico.
Getting a little Brazil action.
That's
and yes,
right.
One name, one goddamn name. It never crossed your mind.
Well, he technically has a full name, but this is, and we've discussed this on older podcasts. They get a nickname, it sticks with them, and then that's their name.
I love Brazil. They're just like, you know what? Our soccer team is full of talented McLovins. Let's do it.
I know you love that. His real name is Arthur Antunes Coimbra.
Damn Portuguese and their crafty Portuguese and your hard to pronounce names.
And then it was shortened to Zico through a bunch of different ones. And
I wrote it down, actually.
All right, give it to me.
Okay, so it used to be Little Arthur, which translated to Arthurzinho. Then it went to Arthur Zico, then Zico, and then eventually his cousin Linda called him Zico. So it just kept getting shorter and shorter. It's like, extra letters, fuck that.
Yep. And it stuck for the rest of his career. And that's the thing that I find so interesting is everybody knows him as Zico.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. Arthurzinho is a pretty sweet name, though.
Yeah.
Like Little Arthur. But
Arthurzinho.
Yeah, he was born March 3rd, 1953 in Quintino, Boca,
Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, that's the neighborhood. Yeah. Lower middle class Portuguese family. His grandfather, I believe, immigrated to Brazil from Portugal.
Yep.
So he's there's a reason people call him White Pele. Mm-hmm. So and even Pele had said the only person on my level that I've ever seen is this guy. And watching him play soccer on YouTube, I was very impressed.
Well, they kind of played in that same position, and
they 10, yeah.
They kind of they did the same thing where Pele was just like, "Oh, you can control the game from here," and then Zico was like, "Oh, you can do so much more."
Yeah. It's like, I like that guy.
Yes.
But he played soccer like basically everyone in Brazil. Played it on the streets.
Well, this is the thing when they say on the streets. So I was reading that, and that's kind of misleading. So what they're saying is he would play futsal or indoor soccer, which is cool. Smaller, condensed versions of soccer, and it's way more tricks, and it's way more one-on-one, almost like basketball, like 3-on-3.
So that explains a lot about the way he plays his game now that I think about it.
And it explains a lot of the way that the Brazilians play, because almost every single one of them can dribble out of a corner.
Yeah.
And so he's playing in these kind of condensed soccer, and he has a tryout at America, which is a smaller club.
Yeah.
And they go to one of these weekend events at like an indoor soccer thing, and I think he scores like 9 goals.
Yeah, in 1967 at 14.
Yep.
Yeah, that was his big coming out party. And there was a radio producer, Celso Garcia, who told him to try out for a team, but not just any team, his favorite team.
Well, that's the thing is he walked up to him and he said, "Do you want to play for Flamengo?" And he said, "Of course, that's my favorite team." And he goes, "Okay, let's go home to your dad right now and get his permission for you to try out."
I can't imagine. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, like that's literally like I bet he woke up that day like dreaming of that, and that's what I bet you were about to say.
No, I was going to go in a completely different direction. It's like, "Hi, Dad, I met this strange man who wanted to meet you today."
No, not back in that day. I'm just, especially with the soccer, because immediately that guy's just like credentials. But you're right, he's just like, his name is Sandusky, and he wants me to go to college in America.
There's this There's this guy who comes out of the living room with iced tea, going, "Why don't you take a seat?"
Yep.
Why don't you take a seat?
Why don't you take a seat right there, right there.
But no, he gets to play for his favorite team. I found that so awesome.
Well, and this is something that is so per the time. He gets to Flamengo. He tries out. They're like, "Your soccer skill is amazing, but you're malnourished."
Yeah, he had to go with basically a PE teacher because he wasn't a strong guy. He wasn't like an imposing figure.
Well, he just flat out was small for his age.
Yeah.
And that happened a lot in this era of people in lower middle class where they just flat out were not getting enough food. So they were
that's
like,
what the dictatorship is for,
don't
Chris.
bring up they were helping people. So they put him on this 6 months regiment, and he talks about this is when he realized how to become a professional.
Yeah.
Because he was talking about it like, in this time that the only thing I did was eat and work out and eat and work out. I couldn't even have like girlfriends or like anything like that. I realized like, if I really want to be the greatest soccer player like I think I do, that's going to be my life.
So that basically sounds like everything I did in COVID without soccer dreams.
Yes. Eat and work out. And that was the thing, is he actually gained, because he's still growing at this point. They saw that the potential there with his soccer, and then they were like, well, if you actually put some muscle on,
you're not frail.
Exactly.
But no, 71-72, he's on the youth team. I had read, this is how dominant he was. 81 goals in 116 games. There are tons of soccer games I've watched where nobody scores. Goddamn, this guy was a machine.
And this was the era in which they weren't bringing up youth players when they should have.
Yeah.
So his coaches kept like bringing him up and then putting him back down and then bringing him up, and this is what people were saying was just like, no, in like 71,
yeah,
he was ready to be on the first team,
and he's like 18.
Yeah.
So, and he's ready to be on the first team in a soccer crazed country with a good pro league.
Exactly.
Yeah, that should speak to how talented he was.
Because he makes on the senior side, he makes 15 appearances and has 2 goals.
No.
And then 72, he makes 4 appearances and has 0 goals. And they made a coaching switch. I don't know if you read this.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And his youth coach, who wasn't like a big coach, he was like just their youth coach, and then he just like, they fired their coach without having another coach in place.
Yeah.
So they were like, you know the team, you know the system, we're gonna promote you. And he was like, that's great. I'm bringing Zico in and I'm slotting him into that number 10 position because I know how good he is. And
you rubes don't know a thing.
That's straight. And it changes the dynamic, because there are these instances in his career where he said he thought about quitting.
Yeah.
This is one of them, and then there's another one with the national team.
Yeah, did you want to talk about that before we go into the rest of his Flamengo career?
Yeah, sure.
I read about that.
Sure.
Yeah. In 72, it's the Olympics in Munich, Germany.
Yep.
Known for a lot of other things, but this could have been the end of Zico's whole soccer career. We might have been cheated out of it.
In the qualifying, he has, I think, 5 goals.
Yeah.
And not only that, he is instrumental in this Brazilian squad. So like, that's something else that people don't realize, is like, he at this point should have been the Pelé, because I think he was 17, or you know what I mean? He was this young kid.
Yeah, he's like 19 years old.
Yes. Yeah. And they just weren't giving him that opportunity. So,
which sucks. Like, I read that and I'm like, this is some bullshit.
Yeah. Well, it's the misunderstanding of what should have happened with this kid, but it's give and take, because later on he
probably comes around and is like, well, I'm thankful they did that, but it's still like, man, you put your best squad out there.
Yes.
Like, that should be the mentality. I don't care how old or young you are.
And how ridiculous it is with him not getting the bid to go to the Olympics with them is he stops playing soccer for 2 weeks. He doesn't even return to Flamengo, and he told them that he's debating quitting soccer forever, and his brothers actually talked him into it, to coming back and be like, this can't be the end.
You're not quitting now.
Yeah.
Like, come on, just go back and play for Flamengo. And that's what he does. And from 71 to 83, that's considered that, I guess, franchise's golden era.
Well, I want to bring this up, because just to hammer this home, is they didn't bring him to the Olympics, and Flamengo wasn't playing him on the first team. So like, he kept being like, I'm the best player out here and nobody's playing me. And then that's what happened in 73, was his youth coach became the temporary coach, or like the coach for that season.
Yeah.
And was just like, no, he's our star and this is how we're going to go. And that's when you see from 73 to about like 80 is when they build a team around him.
Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
Yeah, no, and they just start dominating. They won the 81 Copa de Internacional or whatever, and 1981 International Cup, 4 national titles in 80, 82, 83, and 87, and then just an absolute goal-scoring machine. He was a very creative player.
Well, I want to bring this up because they build this team around him, but he was always, like you said, one of the best goal scorers of his era.
Yeah.
But he struggled with injury in the years of World Cups.
Yeah.
And it's so brutal because the Flamengo team's getting together in 77. I think they got second. And then in 78, he had a horrible injury and played 0 appearances and scored 0 goals, obviously. And then that was the 78 World Cup.
Yeah.
So in the 78 World Cup, they weren't thought of as a team that was like one of the better ones, but it was still Brazil.
Yeah.
And he had a good group stage and then didn't get to play in the game that they got eliminated in.
That's just bullshit.
Well, you'll see it in 82 because he was injured and he just wasn't fully recovered.
Yeah.
So that was 78, and then that's in 79 he starts to come back for Flamengo, and that's when we just talked about with 80 to 83 is the greatest time, and he gets traded and then comes back. But he was talking about it, he was just like, my time at Flamengo, we won more trophies in a 5-year span or like a 6-year span than they did in their entire history.
Yeah.
So like we were to put context, they're the working class club of Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
So like they have like the biggest stadium. They have but they're just like this like working class club. I can't even put it any way other than that. So for them to have this domination in this 80s is just so, like you said, like awesome. In 81 they won what you said, and you probably didn't know what it was. It was the
I don't know what the fuck these things
are. It was the World Club Cup at
World
the time.
Club Cup.
So,
okay.
And this is what happened in 81 is they go to Japan.
Okay.
And they play Liverpool in the finals. And they destroy them.
Wow.
So they beat them 3-0, and the coach from Liverpool goes, they were playing soccer on a different level than us. We just won the league, and I think they were like second in the European title.
Oh, jeez.
So they were just like, no, we were involved in all of those games. When we played Flamengo, they were playing something else. And Zico, that was the other thing. It was just like, Zico is like the best player I've ever seen. How can we get him to come to Europe?
Yeah.
And then 83, there's like a bit of a bust up with him in the Flamengo board, if you will.
Yeah, 83, he starts exploring his options as far as...
So there's controversy on this.
Yes, there is, and I have some context for some of this.
I wanted to hear it from you, man, so give it to me.
So in 1983, he's offered $4 million, which in 1983 money is a lot of fucking money. He's offered to join Udinese, which is an Italian soccer team. But they're not like on the level of the best teams in the Serie A, you know.
So to put it in perspective, when they tried to get this transfer to go through, Juventus and AC Milan tried to get the Italian FA to stop it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, no, a team that small shouldn't be spending that much. That's literally what they were saying.
Like it's like no, we're spending this much because you fuckers are taking all the good players.
Exactly.
And they're not like a great team by any
not
means.
at all.
I mean, they're barely in the Serie A, whatever. I mean, in the league itself, and they're not like a big town. I mean, they're not like, you know, playing in Milan or Turin or places like that.
One of his Flamengo teammates made the best analogy for this. He goes, he went from Rio de Janeiro to a town that couldn't fit in our stadium. So like the population was like, I think like 80,000. He was like, yeah, that's how much we get every Saturday. And it was such an interesting, he was like, it's such a culture shock for him.
So Udine is in an area called Friulia in Italy. It's the most eastern province you get. It borders the Istrian Peninsula, where we talked about with Mario Andretti, which is Croatia now, right?
Yep.
Friulia as a region spans from Italy into Austria and also into Slovenia. So it's like that part of Italy, it's much different than everywhere else. Like we talked about in the Maradona episode, north is different from south. Every province is fucking different, but that is like, it's a whole different animal. It's an area which was heavily Austrian populated, yet Italy won in World War I. It's where the Battle of Caporetto was. I mean, this is like, when you think of Italy, you don't think of this part. It's not something people think about. And the fans were getting very upset that AC Milan and these other teams were trying to stop it.
Yes.
And what I found hilarious and interesting is that region threatened to secede from Italy if that transfer didn't go through.
Well, the protests were so real, if that makes sense. So they were like, no, this is ridiculous. Like, you want us to be Italian, let us be Italian and spend money where we want.
Exactly.
And the Italian FA, I mean, good on them. We're just like, yeah, I guess you can buy players in which you want. And to put perspective on Zico's thing, though, Flamengo came out and said that there was a bunch of Serie A teams that were putting money on the table for him.
Oh, yeah. No,
Zico,
they just outbid him, yeah.
No, but Zico goes, I was in those meetings. The only team that put a bid on me was Udinese. So when they were like, hey, where do you want to go? He said, I have one choice, and that's to go to it, because he was talking about, people were like, why would you go to Udinese at this time? They're like
the ones that wanted him.
They were like a super small club, and that's what he said. He goes, that was it. That was the choice. Juventus didn't make a bid. AC Milan didn't make a bid. So I had to go. Yeah. Because that was the thing with Flamengo, was they were like, we have to cash in on you right now for various reasons.
Well, yeah, financially and everything else. If someone's willing to pay that kind of dough, especially at that time for a soccer player,
time, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's like Maradona money.
And this is the pre-Maradona trade. Yeah. So he goes to Udinese in 83, and we see the landscape of this, because that's what Italian clubs have been doing, but this landscape of this megastar coming. So when Barcelona the next year is like, hey, we want to get rid of Diego Maradona, Napoli's like, we'll do that.
Well, yeah, because they're another kind of smaller, less successful team.
And they like saw this from Udinese. They were like, we could do that. Why couldn't we do that?
Yeah, and they fucking did it.
So in 83, 84, I'm going to talk about how he did. Oh, go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm jumping.
All the fans would chant, O Zico, O Austria, which basically meant, we'll go back to Austria if we can't get this player. That's how highly thought of he was.
Well, that's how they felt like they were being discriminated against in this ridiculous, richer part of Italy. You know?
I mean, they're... people in Milan and Turin don't think the same about them as they do about themselves, So
that's why him going to Udinese is so big, and Udinese is still in the Serie A. They're still one of the bigger clubs, or at least one of the clubs that are well known. You know what I mean? They're not, But 83, 84, he really shows, because there's this kind of... Actually, no, we got to go back.
Okay.
We got to go back to the World Cup in 82.
All right, let's talk about the World Cup in 82.
We got to go back to that Brazilian squad in that World Cup in Spain. So 82, they are looked at as this golden generation of Brazilians. Yeah. They have Socrates, they have Junior, they have... I didn't even write down the other one.
They have a guy named Socrates on their team? Oh, fuck yes.
Yeah. And he was great. Oh, my God, he was so good. But that was the thing, and they had Zico, and they were looked at as the best team.
Yeah.
Game 1, they're playing Sweden. It's 1-1, 90th minute. This is before we were given how much injury time, so it was all at discretion of the referee.
Yeah.
They get a corner kick. He crosses the ball in, and Zico goes and heads the ball in.
Oh, nice.
The referee blows before, so as soon as the guy kicks the ball, he kind of blows his whistle. And he's just like, no, the game was over.
Bullshit.
And it is one of the worst calls. And people are just like, why would he even do that? Why wouldn't you just blow it before he kicks the ball? And
well, we all know how on the level soccer refereeing
so
is.
it was pretty egregious. And so they later meet up with Italy, and they need to beat Italy to go to the semifinals.
Okay.
And Italy and Pablo Rossi has one of the best games against one of the best teams.
Yeah.
Because Rossi, I think, has 2 goals and he has 6 in the tourney.
Oh, jeez.
And Italy end up beating Brazil 3-2. And it's this thing that happens in the World Cup and the Euros and the Gold Cup where the best team almost never wins.
Yeah.
So it's not the best team for that year.
It's a team that gets hot.
It's
like
the team
playoffs.
it's the team that's the best for that month. And that's why it's so interesting, and that's why the World Cup is so interesting, and that's why this was, because Brazil, everybody knew they were the best team. If we were playing a year-long season, they would dominate.
Yeah.
But playing Italy in this time, Italy was hot. They go in and beat them 3-2, and they go on to win the World Cup. And you could see it that they were the hot team.
Yeah.
So, and we saw that in this year's Euro now that just ended, and Italy won because they were the hot team.
Exactly.
So, and that's what we see with 82, and that's what we see with people talking shit on Zico, even though he's without a doubt one of the greatest soccer players ever. Is they said he
never won a World Cup.
Never won a World Cup.
Dan Marino almost.
Yes, and this is why I wanted to do an episode on him, because in Brazil he's known, but in this era, it was almost like Brazilian football wasn't as important, even though it was.
Oh, jeez, that sucks, dude.
It's just the misthinking of his career.
To think if he would have won one World Cup, I think he would be known on the same level as Pele.
Well, think about this. If he was in a different country, they wouldn't be thinking but he didn't win a World Cup. Because he was Brazilian,
that's
they're kind of
true.
He's Brazilian and he didn't. So, it kind of stacks on that. So
that sucks balls, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, Zico, man. So 83, he goes to Udinese. He has one of the greatest seasons probably that he's had.
He does awesome individually.
And he proves this thing that he felt like he was proving in Spain is everybody said that he only could play in Brazil and his best games are at the Flamengo Stadium because he was kind of just like a homebody, and that's what his criticism was he can play here, but international tournaments, he's not bringing it for us. So when he goes to Udinese and he has this season, and he was talking about it, he was just like, it was me and a bunch of kids. Yeah. Because they kind of had to purge some of their lineup to get him in there.
Well, you got to reconstruct your entire roster and your books. I mean,
so he has 19 goals in his opening season, one behind Michel Platini, actually winning the 83 player of the year, which everybody was talking about, which is Udinese is going to be a threat coming up.
He's still a fan favorite there. They love what he did for him.
Love him. But and this is why I brought it up earlier, but this is what Napoli takes, and they're just like, oh, we could do that?
Yeah.
And that's what Napoli does to what Udinese was trying to do, which they put a little bit more help around Maradona, and he takes Napoli to the Serie A title. But Udinese, this was the blueprint that Udinese put into place that Napoli took.
Zico, what you needed was cocaine and orgies. That's what you needed.
No, this is what kind of sucks, and this is what is criticism on him, is he was too public about what he wanted from his club. So in 84, 85, he struggled with injury and suspension because he felt like the club didn't put enough talent around him. They were relying on him too much, and then this was the era in which your star would get cleared out. Ooh. So he was getting cleared out, and then there was no
no enforcer.
No
on your
enforcer,
team.
no
Yeah.
other player that could like step in and like help him out. So like he definitely was mad at Udinese for this entire season, and then at the end he has a fantastic game against Diego Maradona's Napoli, and pretty much is his goodbye game. So he plays one really unbelievably solid season, one spotty season, and then he's gone, and Udinese still looks at him as like a hero.
Yeah, and then he went back to Brazil.
Well, that's the one place he wanted to go, you know?
A lot of people went to Italy from Brazil back in the day, but for other reasons.
So he goes back to Brazil, and this is something I thought was interesting. Was there was actually a consortium of companies that had to pay because Flamengo didn't have the money for him to come back, and they actually donated it for him to come back.
Jesus.
Another little tidbit in that final year, just in case you were wondering why he was so mad, he got
charged of tax evasion.
He got accused of tax evasion, just like Diego Maradona, but he was cleared of all charges.
Yeah,
that was the other thing. Was they were just accusing all foreigners.
Yeah, all the people who make the most money.
Yep.
Like,
So
why are you paying your fair share? It's like, motherfucker.
Well, that's why he was ready to be done with Italy.
Yeah.
So
I don't blame him.
1 month back into Flamengo, he has the worst injury of his career.
Yeah, and that's what fucked over his World Cup, right?
And this is what we alluded to early. So this is first month into 86. Marcino Nunez with a horrible tackle.
Yeah.
And he just really doesn't recover for the 86 World Cup.
Yeah.
And the whole team, the whole Brazilian team is an older team.
Yeah.
So for that 86 World Cup, they're not there. And Zico even talked about it. He was just like, we weren't thinking we were going to.
Oh, they had already lost in their minds, probably.
Exactly.
They were just like, man, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Coming back the next year for Flamengo, though, they win their last league title.
Yeah, 87.
This one is controversial. They're back in the day in Brazil, you could win the league. So you were supposed to win the green, and then another team would win the yellow version.
Okay.
And then you were supposed to play each other.
Okay.
But they were the first team to be like, no, that's bullshit because we won. So winning the green is like winning the league.
Yeah.
Like for the year. And they're like, no, we won the league for the year. Like we need to stop this. So they refused to play, and they just celebrated it as they won. And then in 2015, 17, something like that, it went all the way to the Supreme Court to see who
Brazil? Oh
to
my
see
God.
who was the actual official winner, and they gave it to the other team.
Oh, that's
because
weak sauce.
And this is the thing that everybody was talking about was such bullshit was like, well, the other team never said they weren't going to play. And it was just like, that's stupid. So their 87 one is controversial, but not to anybody that actually cares. And then he just can't. He said after the 87 year, he can't stay fit enough to play.
Yeah.
So he's just constantly injured, constantly. He was like, I would get 3-4 games in, and I would get injured. So that's why in 89 he decides to retire.
Yeah, I had read in 731 games with them, he had 508 goals. That's ridiculous.
So he's the highest scoring Flamengo player ever. He probably will keep that.
Yeah.
The statistic that I thought that was so great was he has 101 goals from free kicks.
Yeah, that's what I had read. He was good at kicking the ball when it was dead.
He was the best.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I kind of tried to save to the end because this is his trademark was he made free kicks undeniably dangerous. So back in the day, and I think about it and Babe Ruth wasn't the first one, but he's the one that gets credited for it. But when Babe Ruth started ripping home runs, pitchers were like, oh shit, like I have to actually make every pitch count.
Yeah.
And when players would foul guys in the middle of the pitch, they like finally started to get this realization like, oh, guys are going to bury it from this free kick. And Zico was really that first guy that was just like constantly had this beautiful free kick from almost wherever.
Yeah.
I would say, and this is something that's hard to compare with now, but I would say is the greatest free kick taker of all time. I don't think many people would actually argue with me on that one because...
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I read about him is like there was no debate on it.
Well, if you look at his free kicks now,
yeah,
they look like they're from last year.
Yeah.
And they're from, you know what I mean? So, like, that's the thing that people were talking about was, like, even in 75, 76, his free kicks were, like, insane. So, he has to be the greatest free kick taker ever. We alluded to it earlier. He went to Japan and they beat Liverpool after he retired.
He was with Japan there forever.
Well, he went to, so there was the forming of this Japanese league, like in America when Pele came and they decided to have the North American Soccer League. They went to Japan and they were forming this league, and he went to this small city and played for their team and got them promoted into what is now J League, which is their number one league.
Kashima Antlers.
Kashima Antlers. Thank you.
Nicknamed the God of Football.
Well, it's this thing that I feel like he got with Udinese where he was just like, I do want to go play for a super small club, and I do want to make them viable, because that's exactly what he does with the Kashima Antlers is he goes, plays for them for 2 years, is their best player, gets them promoted to the the J League number one, and then they go on and they're still playing as a club. He's with them
now.
Well, that's the thing is he and this is what his big connection with Japan is he ends up coaching in Japan.
He coached in, I saw, Iraq, Uzbekistan, Greece. I mean, he's been everywhere.
But he's been everywhere, but his influence on Japan, and if you know anything about Japanese soccer, is they love Brazilian soccer, and they love the style that they play. And it almost is all from Zico.
Yeah, who do you think brought it to him?
Exactly. And it's just this thing where I just wish we looked at Pele and we were like, I want to play like that, not how, Americans play. So,
yeah.
There you go. Thank you all very much with Zico, the Brazilian master. Hey, everybody. This is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.